Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Nicstalgia. You might notice something new, fun, and different today, and that is that I have two guests instead of just one. In this case, two really is better than one. I'm very excited because I have Perri and Sofia here with me today, and they are from Butterland, and that is a creative digital marketing agency for tech startups. So we are going to talk about all things pop culture and digital marketing. We're going to touch on social media and, we might even get into a little friendly competition or debate today. And thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. We're really excited.
Yes, I am too. So we're going to get right into it because I think that nowadays we all kind of live on the internet. Let's be honest. We are internet children and creatures. And in the past, we saw how what we did in real life impacted what we would then see on the internet. And I think that now we are at a stage where what happens on the internet, whether it's marketing or social trends or viral moments or whatever it may be, what's happening online is actually influencing us in real life now. And so I think that's super, super interesting. And we've been seeing all of these different brands pop up that have been born in the internet generation that were started by celebrities or public figures who really utilize digital marketing and the internet to push these products, to sell these products to the point where now we don't know what's real, what's not. Kind of everything's real, kind of everything is not. And, right? And when people I find it so funny when people are like, oh, in Instagram versus real life. And it's like, well, I don't know about you, but the internet kind of is real life at this point. And so I wanted to hear from you guys about the few different projects that you've seen come out, especially in the skincare industry, and kind of like what these have looked like and what it kind of says about the state of digital marketing and that influence and that culture that's so pervasive nowadays.
Totally. Yeah, I think for me, the first thing that I think of is like the fact that we've gotten to like a 13-step skincare routine. So it's like we went from the heyday of the makeup YouTubers who told you to get every single eyeshadow palette and whatever else. And then it was like, actually natural is better. So we're going to do the no makeup look. And that instead of buying 12 eyeshadow palettes, you need to now buy an elixir and a serum and 4 different types of eye patches and whatever else. So I think that's kind of like a perfect example of the internet and these trends sort of telling us how, like, what normal is almost. Like, and I think part of it that's beautiful is that I know a big part for skincare specifically is like the Korean beauty. They're really into the multiple step skincare. So it's great in the sense that there's this open world where we're now taking beauty trends from South Korea or, music from South Korea. That part of it is beautiful, but I think I don't want to say harmful, but I think it's just not real reality when, every single turn, when we think we're getting closer to a normal or a more natural reality, it's actually just another reality being sold to us by a company. So there is no escaping it, kind of, is how I feel.
Yeah, for as much credit as we give TikTok for being like so real and not being aesthetic minded or driven, there's the same stuff's happening there too. We will always continue to be sold things while we are in a place that's leverageable for advertising. The thing that I think the Kim Kardashian skincare drop recently, like, to me, that was like so transparent, and I thought that like we were kind of beyond that. Like obviously, you know, the
You thought we were
audiences
smarter
are
than
a lot
that?
smarter these days, and they're not really that down with being sold directly, like something that they know is literally just packaging and a celebrity influencer. So when I looked at, you know, all that stuff, I was like, the aesthetic. I mean, it's Instagram like 5 years ago. It's like stone. It's perfect product shots. It's whatever. And it's like I just feel like I thought that the audience. I thought that Kim Kardashian's people would think that the audience was smarter than that, but apparently that's not the case. Nothing revolutionary is happening there. I can assure you of that. Both aesthetically and
No, there's a walnut scrub,
formulaically.
please.
That we remember apricot scrub back in the day.
Yeah,
St. Ives, baby, just tearing that face up.
Yeah.
Micro tears galore.
Micro tears galore. Yeah, so I don't know. I was pretty nonplussed by that drop, and then I think the possibly more interesting one was from Scarlett Johansson a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was, called The Outset. Of course, I'm like a package junkie, so I saw it and I was like, "Oh, that's cute. I want that." But then, you know, I was like, "Okay, let me see what she's saying about this brand." And all of it was like, you know, I was looking for. I mean, it's the same thing you've heard from Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean, it's the same thing. I was looking for a brand that could blah blah blah, and I just couldn't find it, so I had to create it myself. I was like, Jesus, like that is, you know, marketing 2000, 2001 or whatever. So that I was kind of like disappointed by, especially because all the ethos and conversation that she was creating around the company was like, yeah, I know, like another celebrity doing a skincare line, but this is different, and here's why. And I was just like, wow, like they're just lying.
It doesn't even matter at this point.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Like you wanted to come out with a skincare line, you came out with a skincare line. At least just own that. Like, okay, I'm another celebrity with a skincare line. I believe in it, but that's up to you guys to decide. Or a little bit of like more of a like grounded, earthy approach. And aesthetically, again, like super polished, super like, to me, it's like when every website became Casper after Casper came out. Right. It was like every skincare line is now that like stone look, or like, you know, very stark product shots with like a gauzy linen curtain, you know, like it's so boring. I'm just like looking for a disruptor. And, you know, ultimately the sad realization is like, what does disruption look like in marketing? It just looks like selling something another way. And even that excites me, but it also is kind of a sad reality.
For me, it was when I saw Alicia Keys had a new skincare line, and I was like, well, surely we're not going to let this happen. Like, we're not going to let this happen, right? Like, we're not going to go back to like early 2000s where every single celebrity had a fragrance line, from Jessica Simpson to Paris Hilton to whoever else. And it was so, I mean, back then I was literally like, I don't even know, a tween. And even at that age, I was like, oh my gosh, like everyone they just will slap their name onto everything. And so now we've somehow come back to that with skincare and everything. Again, it's like these trends they are just on a cycle, and they do repeat. And as you said, Sophia, you would think that we're smarter now and more evolved, but we're really not.
What did you guys have any of those perfume? Like, what was your like celebrity perfume? I know I had a Lady Gaga one, which I actually embarrassingly still have because I think it's wow. Did you guys ever get like the Jessica Simpson, the Paris Hilton drops? Do you remember how obsessed?
I only had Juicy. I had Juicy Couture perfume.
That doesn't count. We're not.
I didn't. But I told you, I was like really not. Even back then I was like, no, I want like the real thing.
Yeah,
sorry.
I had Britney Spears. Okay, and I have no idea why, but there's Curious and Fantasy,
Curious.
And one was blue and one was pink, and I get them mixed up every single time, so I'm not even going to try to remember which is which. I had the pink one, and they still sell it at CVS behind the counter. I swear.
Oh my God.
I that was almost my impulse buy the last time I was at CVS. I don't know why they still have it. They do, but I'm finding that with celebrity skincare nowadays, there's really two distinct ways that you can go. One is the ScarJo way, which, quick sidebar, I always was like, why are people so obsessed with her? It was annoying because I really never understood the appeal. And then my old office was in Milk Studios in New York City. So one day, it's like a Friday afternoon, I'm getting out of work. It's like 99% humidity. I'm like hangry. I'm tired. My hair is frizzy. I'm like pissed off, probably. I was going to say for some reason, but it's like because I was working in corporate. Like that's why I was pissed, obviously.
Daily.
And then, right. And it's like, I'm going to leave. I'm like, finally, let me get out of here and just go home. And I'm like visibly agitated. And then the elevator doors open and they were these gigantic, what do you call them? Like service elevators, essentially, because, you know, in that building, they produced all these photo shoots and et cetera. And the doors open and Scarlett Johansson's standing right there. And I'm like, now I get it. Now I get why everyone's obsessed with her. She just had this presence and she was so beautiful. And I just got in the elevator pretending that, well, first of all, I'm like, let me not be like visibly distressed right now.
You got to play it cool.
I had to be cool. I got in the elevator and, you know, just turned around and she's behind me. I'm like, my hair is so frizzy right now. Oh my God. Like out of all the days you picked to be in the elevator with me, it couldn't have been on a better day for me. So I thought that was a little inconsiderate. But other than that, I was like, I get it now. But anyway, that business decision represents what I like to call the like goopification of it, where it's like you're Gwyneth Paltrow. You talk about whether now it's in the NFT space or the skincare space or the sexual wellness space. It's like Gwyneth Paltrow has never had to fight for inclusion in literally any way ever. And so that is how it seems patronizing when she puts something out and it's like, don't worry, like I'm like you. It's like you're actually really not.
You literally have never had a day like me ever.
Right. We are not the same. And you know what? I'm obsessed with the 1997 movie Sliding Doors starring Gwyneth Paltrow. But in general, it's like the goopification it's like a mix between tone deafness and girl boss culture, which has I wouldn't even say largely dissipated because the takedowns of female tech founders are still happening on the virtual cover of magazines, like still constantly. Right. But anyway, it's like, it's either that or the early 2000s, every celebrity, you get a fragrance, which, you know, everyone did that because fragrances are cash cows. And so that's why.
Oh my God. I would love to see the margin. I'm sure you know the margins actually on fragrance. Like it has to be insane.
And you know who I think is the best example currently of this same kind of doing it because it's the cash cow is Rihanna. And she is committed to her skincare line and her makeup and this and that because she's like, guys, music makes me nothing compared to this.
Right.
And we were all like, oh, or at least
which is why she won't drop another album.
Got it. That's why she's not coming out with the albums even after all of the pressure. It's because that's, I mean, it may be a little bit stale for her career wise, but then also financially, there's just such more of an incentive to be where the money is.
Yeah. Okay. So for the Kardashians, I am very much in the camp of like, I love reality TV. The trashier, the better. However, the Kardashians are the one show that I simply cannot even sit through. Like I tried to watch the new Hulu series. I have the mega iMac computer. So when I'm working and I'm like just doing kind of like admin stuff, I'll put on like in a small screen in the corner a show, and one preferably that I don't like have to really pay attention to. And so I was like, oh, I'll throw the Kardashians on. Like this will be fun. I literally, even as background noise, I could not sit through this. And I think that's where Sophia and I differ because Sophia, you can tolerate it. Like you enjoy watching it for what it is. Right?
I'll hop into a season here and there, and I've seen a lot of the Kardashian shows over the years. But my thing with it is like you can't just pick up the Hulu series and be like, okay, like I'm going to start with the Kardashians in 2022. Like if you weren't on the ground with the first season or the second or third at least, like
Okay, but I
you
know
don't even
everything.
understand what this show is like. Like,
no, but
it's
I
a
know
bizarre
everything
show.
that's happening.
No,
Though. That's
you don't.
the difference.
No, you don't. Because if you are watching like weekly over the course of like 10 years, you feel a certain way about this show that cannot be explained by like, okay, I read a few articles, I saw like what this is about, I've seen some clips, I've watched a few episodes here and there. Like, this isn't like its own culture. So like you have to stuff that looks insane is like, oh yeah, that's like a normal thing that happens on this show. So like for people that are like part of that culture, which I guess now I'm forced to say I am a part of that culture. So I don't feel like I'm like at the front lines, but I think that there is like a warmth and comfort and nostalgia even to being with them.
That I understand.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you love a movie when you were like growing up and then you have someone else watch it as an adult when it's like 15 years old and they're like, yeah, you're like looking over at them to see if they're like thinking it's as good as you do. And you're like, oh, actually this is extremely dated and I should have just kept this whole thing to myself.
Right. And you don't want to stand by it, but you also don't want them to dog it. It's like, I can say that like maybe this didn't hold up, but like you don't get to say like, oh, this is horrible.
Right. It's very cheesy. Right. Got it.
Yeah. I almost miss, no, not almost. I do miss the kind of cheesiness and like the hijinks that they used to do. Like they would genuinely be playing tricks on each other and stuff. And my favorite episode, I don't remember what season it was from, but when Chris had these male enhancement pills and put them actually by accident in Rob's coffee and then sent him to the hospital. Like,
I didn't see that.
If you haven't seen Kardashians and need to watch one episode, that is it, because it's so funny. Or when they get a monkey as a pet, like the girls when they were still literal children, and then Chris is going crazy. Like that kind of stuff is just funny. And I think it was because it was about the family and the show. It wasn't about their personal lives. And I think that now the expectations have changed because we've known so much about their personal lives for an entire generation now.
Right.
Where it's like we expect them to take responsibility for the amount of power and privilege and everything that they have. But like that's not literally who they are. So we expect them to be like, hey, haven't you negatively impacted the beauty standard or the thin ideal, or like everyone, even when you see TikTok videos now of people doing their makeup in 2016 and you see them put on eyebrows that are this thick with giant pencil, it's like that was all inspired by them. But what are they appropriating, or what kind of ideals that we even found toxic 5 years ago were they perpetuating, which in the grand scheme of things 5 years ago was not that long ago. And so I think that's kind of where I have trouble reconciling, where on one hand, it's like, dude, they're a business empire. So we don't treat them like a business, though. We still treat them like they're humans and hold them to these ideals. Whereas I'm just like, I don't even give them that much credit to do the quote right thing, because they have the power, they have the money, they have the position to make a positive impact on the world, and they don't in a lot of ways.
I think there's two camps, and I think there's the camp of people, and this goes back to pretty much everything we've been talking about today, which is like, haven't we evolved past knowing certain things or believing certain things? And there's still, and maybe it's because in marketing, you have to be super tapped in and you have to see things. Like I'll talk to people and they like don't even know about an algorithm. Like they don't even know anything about, and I'm not saying the inner workings, but like they're not even understanding that like, no, TikTok records what you like and what you view the most. And then they show you more of that. Like we take for granted that there are people that just don't know that or understand that that's what's happening in technology. And the same goes for the Kardashians. There's the camp of people who understand these people are a business. Everything that they say, everything that they do has a dollar sign somewhere down the road. And then there's the camp of people who literally think that like Kendall Jenner really doesn't know how to slice a cucumber. and would do it like this. Like people think they're like, oh my God, they're, you know, whatever. It's so silly. And it's like everything they do, or at least when I watch it, I know that anything that goes viral, I'm like, that was planned. They're too smart and they have too many smart people behind them for everything that they do not to be planned, whether it's good or bad publicity. They just want it. And that's how they've been able to own the pop culture sphere for the last decade plus.
Yeah, but what's kind of interesting about that is that I don't think they care. I mean, I think that what they've done is make us okay with contrivances and like understand like, yeah, okay, this, whatever, she didn't really accidentally put that in his smoothie, but I don't really care because I'm laughing and I love these people or whatever the case. Like, it's a really interesting thing for a study of like transparency or, you know, because I mean, even when it comes to like Kylie being caught, like, you know, caught a certain place or whatever, it's like, they know that we know that they called the paparazzi. Like, it doesn't matter though, because like that whatever they've created has been so like, you know, magnetic and people are still loving it. Like,
yeah.
You were mentioning the hijinks stuff, Nicole. Like that was some of the best stuff that happened on that show is not based on the reality, but it's like literally contrivances they put together to like make people laugh. And they were funny. And like, you know, Scott Disick and Khloe Kardashian get together and they're like basically pranking Chris. And like, that's the stuff that people show up for. It's like, it makes us happy, or it gives us the inside track on something that happened in the public eye on whatever time. I don't know that I would argue that it's not even fair to ask them to be like role models or like to like worry about. I have a very like controversial opinion on that stuff in general. So I personally feel like we know what we're looking at. We know what it is. And yeah, maybe there are some people who don't. And like, yeah, I guess that
I would argue there's the majority of people that don't. And that's the problem.
Right.
Because and I totally agree with you for the most part, where it's like, yeah, we shouldn't hold celebrities like Nicki Minaj. If Nicki Minaj is your daughter's idol, that's your problem. Like, that's not Nicki Minaj's problem. I totally stand behind that. But at the same time, I think it goes back to the average person not being able to decipher what they're seeing online. And you can make the argument is like, yeah, is that up to Kylie Jenner to carry that on her shoulders? But I think even back to the conversation of like, yeah, looking at people on Instagram, and there are, you know, girls who look at these and think, oh, wow, Kylie Jenner is so gorgeous and I wish I could look like that one day. And then they don't understand that there's Photoshop, Facetune, plastic surgery, all these things. And they think that, oh, that's just all natural. And I think that's where, again, is it up to Kylie Jenner to hold up those standards and come out and be honest? No, but maybe it is like a disclaimer on Instagram where it's like, and this is very, you know, extreme, but like the photo you're seeing has been altered or whatever. To me, that's just the line, because we take for granted that there are so many people, young and old. And I don't know if you guys have seen this trend on like TikTok where girls will show their boyfriend like a photo and they're like, is she wearing any makeup? And then the guy's like, no, she's not. And then you're like, no, she's wearing tons of makeup and there's filters and whatever else. It's like, yeah, because they don't know. A lot of people don't know, but yet it's changing our reality.
I agree. I'm so curious to hear what you guys think about like TikTok filters on TikTok, because obviously it's now like basically augmented reality filters. Like things are, you know, you've seen like the fake Tom Cruise TikTok, like
the deep fakes,
but then also like just on a level of people just, I mean, it's so normal to have a filter just set on there that like does that quick Facetune. Like, what is that? What are the implications of that? Like, when I see those things switch on and off, first of all, they're incredibly impressive to me. The tech like that's able to render those filters so naturally. But what do you think are the implications of these specifically these TikTok filters?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I had to do a lot of work around my own media literacy. And that's really what this comes down to, is that especially just, you know, having been someone who, you know, when they were a late teenager, really had self-esteem issues tied up in body image and eating disorders. And not being able to decipher what was real from what wasn't in a totally, I mean, we had social media at the time, but absolutely not in the same way. So
Beginning
pre-social media
stages.
as
Yeah.
we know it now, right? So it's like media literacy was my way of making sense of what's out there and coming to the realization that every insecurity, especially for women in this particular sense, like someone is always profiting off of your insecurities.
Yeah.
There's always money to be made whenever you
Mhm.
feel like you have to change something about yourself. And I
Mhm.
think I mean, I'm a very optimistic person. That doesn't sound like an optimistic thing to say. However, it is reality. And that was the first catalyst of me being able to recover and to think a different way about myself and about my place in the world and how I feel about myself when I see what is reflected out there. This was right before the time where Airy Real campaigns came out, and now we're like, oh wow, okay, big deal, they didn't airbrush it. It's like, no, that was the biggest deal ever. There was no marketing campaign ever like that before. And now it's really interesting that this is the reoccurring theme of this episode, that you think that because we supposedly know better, we do better, but
Mhm.
clearly we don't, because it's like we get tested in life, but in the terms of media literacy as well, with the same problem until we do something different. And we're not
Mhm.
doing something different. It's just the problem takes on a different form because systemically nothing has changed. And
Yep.
so to now, I remember having a conversation with a friend a few years ago and her saying, wow, did you see the picture of so and so? They look so gorgeous, whatever. It's like a celebrity. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you know that there's filters and Facetune on that, right? And she was like,
Right.
wait, wait, not right. What do you mean? And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Because to me, having really been like, okay, I'm examining what I see,
Mhm.
I'm
And you're
realizing it's
questioning
not
it.
real. Right. And being able to question and then form your own opinions about it. And to be honest with filters, I've found that for my own mental health and sanity, I don't like being on social media on my personal time. If I'm on social
Mhm.
media, it is to support the Nicstalgia ecosystem. And if I ever go on, I've been like this maybe for at least a few months now, where if I do show my face on stories, I don't use a filter. If I put a
Mhm.
photo on my main feed, I don't use a filter. And I think now that's more accepted because of TikTok. But
Right.
it's like, yeah, I don't want to put on a skin smoothing filter. Or it's like, if you see me in person, like my skin's not perfect every day. My
Mhm.
hair is not perfect every day. And it's like, so who cares? And I think that that's obviously, I can only say that because I have the awareness around it,
Right.
because otherwise saying who cares is a really a way of kind of like oversimplifying it too
Yeah.
much, because it is tricky. You can't say, "Hey, Kardashians, be responsible for changing the way that people feel about themselves," when Khloe Kardashian is the most insecure person publicly about her body and
Mhm.
about how she feels being compared to her sisters and the names that people have called her and the way people have stereotyped her as a member of her family. She suffers from it as much as, if not more than all of us do, because she's under a magnifying glass constantly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really, really interesting point as well.
And I think I forgot who said this, but I think it might have been like Robert Kiyosaki or the guy who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. I forgot his name, but he basically said like the new, pretty much now in this modern age, everyone can read. So really, what we have to work on is financial literacy. And now I feel like even more, it's actually media literacy, because we are so tapped in to where and that's why we see so many issues in not only the United States but across the world, is people are not media literate at all. They don't know how to decipher a good source or a real source or anything. And all of that goes down to being able to understand and comprehend the technology and what it's capable of, whether it's a deep fake or whether it's a fake article or whether it's a totally photoshopped photo. You have to, even if you don't, of course, you don't have to understand how the technology is made. You need to know what exists so you can understand, is what I'm looking at real? And almost go through like a scientific method of vetting what you're intaking. And people don't look at their media consumption as something that they need to vet like you would if you go to the grocery store and look at the ingredients in something. We just consume. And then you see all of these issues and people, the overconsumption. It's like, yeah, because you're not even realizing, back to what we started this whole conversation with, you're not even realizing that when you're just watching someone's TikToks, that it's a covert sales pitch. And we could do a whole other podcast on the fact that so many people are not disclosing that their TikTok videos are ads. And I think that is just like, the wild, wild west of TikTok right now, where like the FCC or whoever monitors it hasn't cracked down quite yet, like they did on Instagram. But I see so many videos. Okay, the Lizzo, like, has anyone noticed the new Lizzo song? How it was like, yes, it's a catchy song, but it just took over TikTok. And when I watch some of those TikToks, I'm like, these are paid campaigns. Like, there's no way with some of these TikToks that it's not a paid campaign, but none of it is disclosed.
Mm-hmm. Right, because as you said, like as a new platform pops up, new rules have to be. I mean, the whole Facebook trial. I mean, you just have to. It has to be navigated. So this is a time when marketers and advertisers like really have a free for all. And so I wouldn't be surprised that like so much is going on there that we don't know about. Because smart marketers know that this is the time, this is the era. Not only is it like having its complete wave takeover of the world, but there aren't any rules yet. So and that's really interesting. I think it's tough because I don't think that education that you're talking about, guys, like most people really aren't going to undertake that. Because people don't read. So that's. I
mean, we still can't get people to care about global warming as like the whole Southwest is in a drought. So it's like, I don't think we're gonna.
That's harder to get people to care about. This would be easier because it kind of pertains to their lives a little bit like more directly, which I think is oftentimes what keeps people from the global warming thing.
Of course,
But even then, people aren't really that interested. To me, it seems that people aren't really that interested in unpacking the ways that they're being brainwashed. I mean, like
it's easier to just go along with it,
right? And I understand that because it's like it's kind of a chore, they're kind of, and people are just don't seem that to me that interested in doing that. So this like media literacy thing ended up being really important in the election recently, as we all saw, but I don't know that education, if it has to be a self-education, I don't know that that's gonna, that is gonna, sort of shift into the majority of the population. I don't know what the answer is, but
leave it to the tech companies or the government or someone to, and I guess you see that on Twitter where it's like, I noticed it a lot when COVID started, where it was like, if you mention COVID in a tweet or a YouTube post or whatever, the little disclaimer would pop up. And it would say like, if you want real COVID guidelines or whatever, go to cdc.org or whatever. But it sounds like we're just doomed. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I think something interesting that happened too on TikTok in the music industry was when Halsey complained that her label wanted her to have a viral moment, but then the viral moment ended up being her complaining about her label telling her to have a viral moment. And like the same thing happened with Charlie XCX and Doja Cat and all these people. And now it's like, okay, I've been on TikTok now for 2.5 years. And now even TikTok is feeling a little bit stale to me, because that feeling of constantly knowing that you are being sold to. And I personally feel like at least Instagram influencer 1.0 era is over, but I mean, what does the
Yes.
culture look like now? Like, how do you have fun? How do you engage with tastemakers or influencers in a way that doesn't feel gross or annoying now? Like, what does that look like to you guys currently?
I mean, I will say that mostly for Butterland, we try and steer pretty clear of influencer stuff, period, because we're working with a lot of tech startups, and the money is it's that money is so valuable to go other places, because in the influencer space, it I feel like as soon as influencer became a job, it was already the hill was already going down. Because now, to your point, Nick, like on TikTok, as soon as you start seeing those videos that are like, if you want to go viral, use this sound. It's 7 seconds and da 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 da. It's like meta. It's like I'm on this app watching videos about how to become famous on this app. It's just like never ending. And as soon as we get into that cycle, we're going to slowly start seeing TikTok is also going to, it might happen in a few years, whatever. It's also going to fall to the social media graveyard, because no one wants to be sold to, which is why these marketers are going around the back door to do it. But for influencers, I think that going back to media literacy, I think that people are a little too savvy now to just be sold to blindly. And there are some really great influencers who still have that authentic touch, but how big can they get? That's always the thing with influencers, is you can't get too big, because once you get to a certain point, you have to take on more of the brand deals, and it does feel like more of a sales pitch. And then your audience starts going, okay, well, you're not really making content for me anymore. And this happens across YouTube, which is like my absolute favorite platform, all of the time, where people are like, why doesn't she upload anymore? Like, she never uploads. And it's like, well, because she has $10 million in the bank now and doesn't need to upload anymore, and you're not getting any more content. And then the channel kind of falls off. So I think another question is like, what's the life cycle of an influencer? Like, are we going to see influencers that, since we've all seen the beginning of social media and the influencer world, where does it end? Are you able to just continuously be an influencer for however long? Or does influencer always turn into like, now I do TV shows, or now I started my own marketing company or whatever? Like, what does that look like? Because we are only in the first decade or so of the influencers.
Yeah, I think it's going to go a few different ways. And just from my perspective personally, the way that I was able to get over all of those icky feelings that people have about social media, and mostly Instagram, with whether it is comparing yourself to other people or feeling like you're burned out because you have to constantly churn out content, or Instagram changes its algorithm and you're like, wait, what's going on? Where's my engagement? Or in some cases, income sources for influencers dry up and it's totally out of their control. I mean, the way that I was able to finally stop caring about social media is because of starting to be interested in and building and working in Web3. And so I think that because my head's already in the next iteration of the internet, it has allowed me to detach from social media in a way that, again, just like setting boundaries with scrolling or being on your feed or being on your phone, that now I can maintain, that allows me to be like, wow, technology excites me again, and
Right.
connecting with people excites me again. And so I think that that will be one of the prongs where people will move forward and the hierarchy will flatten. So it's not so much about, oh, we all look up to an influencer. It's like, no, I own my content. You own your content. You want my content? Pay for it. I want your content. I'm going to pay you for your content, and we're going to compensate each other. And that's the way it goes. So I think that that could be one avenue where there's a little bit more of a mutual benefit, and just a sense of ownership as well. I think another way could be, right, that celebrity pipeline where it's like, now you have your own TV show, or you are cast on Netflix or Hulu or whatever.
Right.
And then I think another avenue that we're going to see is that true Instagram 1.0 era influencer is going to drop off because they are mid-aged millennials. What are they doing? They're having families. They're going to remove themselves from YouTube, from the spotlight, and they're going to be like, I made my money. I did what I had to do. Now I'm going to focus on raising my family. And
unless their family, mom
unless their family
influencers,
is their
which is a whole other segment.
Okay, right. Or so then that's another prong. It's like, or you become a family influencer, and then it's
then your kids start influencing as well.
Right, because it's like, remember we had fashion influencers or interior design influencers or whatever, and then they all started blogging and posting about their weddings. And then they all started posting about their kids.
Everybody was a lifestyle influencer. Yeah.
Right. And it's like these iterations. And so I think it's going to be interesting seeing what, just to put it in the clearest terms, aging millennials are going to do as the first generation of full-time influencers.
Yeah.
What that next iteration of influence is going to look like. But I do think that as saturated as the space once was, it is going to filter out with people who can't keep up with the the need for the audience's constant consumption of the content. I think that the creators need, just for their own peace of mind and sanity, that need to take care of their mental health at some point, I think may eclipse or outpace the desire for that dopamine rush that they were so used to getting before.
Especially when the dopamine rush goes away. If you're starting to see a downtick in your engagement, that's not very inspiring to continue to go on, as sad as that sounds. So I've even noticed a lot of Instagram influencers that I had known before. I'll look at their content today and they're following, and I'm talking about people who have like 300,000 plus followers, and it's like dwindling because you won't go to TikTok and your account can only be what it is on Instagram. Like, there's really no more room to grow. If you made it to 300,000 by, whatever we'll call it, 2018, 2019, the people just aren't there. There's too much content to compete with. And there's too many other places. There's Twitch. What was that one where everyone was doing like the little mini podcasts and you had to get an invite? What was that app? Clubhouse. That lasted like 2 weeks. But there's too many places for people's attention to go. And they're not going back to Instagram because it just doesn't, as creepy as it sounds, it doesn't know you the same way as a lot of these other platforms do. It just, again, it's almost like once you see the wizard, you can't unsee it. And so once people saw that the fire fests, all of these types of things, that it was all just a charade, it's like, yeah, I can't unsee it now. And now we're going to move on to the new thing where people are real, even though it might be fake too. People are real and authentic and on TikTok. Then that's what the new thing is until someone shows the wizard on TikTok.
Well said.
Thanks.
Yeah, right. I know. Those were awesome points. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I could literally talk to you guys all day. And
likewise, love you.
Yeah, this was awesome. Can't wait to hear. Hopefully you'll invite us back because we need to talk about the family YouTubers. That's like a 3-hour session.
That is a whole deep dive.
We should actually make like a mini YouTube documentary about it together,
Absolutely.
Produce it. Yeah.
I mean, that's also a genre of YouTube videos where people go into these pop culture deep dives, and there will be videos that are 5 hours, 8 hours long. And
Crazy.
People will comment, oh, I just had this in the background while I was studying for finals. I'm like, brilliant. Absolutely
wild.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Wilds. This is the world we live in. But thanks again, guys. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening too. And we will see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.